I'm not going to pretend this isn't exciting. Rosie Perez has joined us here on TCM, and it is really great to be here with you.
Oh, thank you. I'm equally excited. I love your show. I love you. Say hello to Eddie Mueller for me. And
I will not.
Okay. So, yeah, but I'm very, very excited.
We're at the United Palace Theater in Washington Heights. This is not your first time here.
No, I've been here once before. There was a fundraiser here, and I couldn't believe this place existed. You feel the nostalgia from floor to ceiling. It is just gorgeous.
Yeah. Rosie picked a double feature for us. These are both boxing films. Killer's Kiss, Stanley Kubrick's second movie. It's boxing adjacent. The other, The Harder They Fall, which we'll have in a couple hours, is a genuine boxing film. I would have been surprised that you picked two films connected to boxing, but there I was with millions of other people a few months back, getting ready to watch Jake Paul fight Mike Tyson. And I'm like, that's Rosie Perez. Why is Rosie Perez a commentator in boxing? And then I listened to you, and I'm like, oh, because she knows a lot about boxing. Where did that start? Where did that come from?
Well, it came from because I'm Puerto Rican. You know, it's just part of the culture. You know, we love baseball and we love boxing. So I've been a fan for a long, long time. And, you know, being in the acting world afforded me great access and wonderful seats. You know, I started in the nosebleed and worked my way all the way down to the floor. And, you know, and in the boxing world, if you look at the audience in the floor, you'll see the usual suspects at each and every fight. Yeah. And so I started to really make friends.
You became a usual suspect.
I became a usual suspect, yes. And also because they respected me, because I didn't just go to the main events. I didn't go to the big title fights. I also went to Broadway boxing. I went to boxing at B.B. King's, the Ford Amphitheater in Coney Island. And so promoters started saying, hey, why don't you come here? I'll give you free tickets. I said, I'm there. And so that's how I became part of the boxing world. Yeah,
when I covered sports, there was nothing like going to those Friday night fights and a bill of guys you didn't really know. Sometimes at the end, there'd be some relatively famous local D.C. fighter, Simon Brown.
Look at you,
yeah, look at
Ben Mankiewicz.
And I loved it. And that was my first introduction to the beauty of boxing. And part of the beauty is its grit. And we're getting its grit in both of these films.
Yes.
So the first one you picked is Stanley Kubrick's second movie, Killer's Kiss, from 1955. What is your attraction to Killer's Kiss?
My attraction to Killer's Kiss is that it's not your ordinary boxing film.
Right.
And I really, really was fascinated by the fact that Stanley Kubrick barely had any money. Yeah. He didn't have any permits, and he pulled off such a feat. You'll see in this film some of the locations. It's so authentic to New York City. And then he goes into the boroughs, and I went, oh my God, that's Vinica Hill. There's a scene where the lead is on top of the rooftops, and he's jumping, running from the mob, and you're just like, this is really beautiful and brilliant. And I really loved how he used lighting, because that's the noir part of it that I'm fascinated by, on a shoestring budget, and it's just amazing. And one of my film fanatic friends told me that he used this specific camera, it's called the IMO, and that someone actually stole it in between scenes while they were shooting, and so he had to improvise. And you'll see, if you're a real film buff, little mistakes here and there, but the film is just so over the top and fascinating, you'll love it.
Yeah, totally. So the lead is Jamie Smith. He's so believable as a boxer that I presumed he was a boxer, but I think not. Just an athletic guy who learned how to act like a fighter. He is a guy whose best days are behind him, and he lives across the courtyard from this woman, Irene Kane, and they glance at each other, but they don't even really know each other. But then their stories merge to make this propulsive. There is not a moment where this isn't moving forward with electricity.
That's right. And the best fight scene is not in the ring in this movie as well.
Oh, no, the best fight scene is a real fight.
Yes, it's a real fight. Yeah. You see the exhaustion on the two actors, and you're like, wow, they really went at it.
Yeah, there's a general school of thought, if the cinephiles are talking about Kubrick, that really the first Stanley Kubrick film is his third film, the movie he made after this, The Killing, with Sterling Hayden. But I'm telling you, this is a Stanley Kubrick film. And it may be a little bit flawed, and he's still figuring it out, but man, he made something special here.
He really did. And this should give every new filmmaker the encouragement to do what you want to do, and don't worry about if you have enough money or not. You can make it work.
All right, those are excellent words to end with. Rosie and I will be back to talk more after the film. Here it is, Stanley Kubrick's second film. It's from 1955, Killer's Kiss. I'm back with Rosie Perez, who's programmed tonight's double feature. And you started off with a bang, Killer's Kiss, Stanley Kubrick's second film. Man, I love it. I love it. I was so taken with it, so moved by this. And even the end, which Kubrick didn't want, United Artists made him have a happy ending.
I did not know that.
But doesn't it make sense? Because you don't think she's coming.
That's right.
You definitely don't think.
You don't think she's coming. And he did that smartly, even though I didn't know that he had to change the ending like that.
That's right. He still did it in a way that he didn't make too much of it. He didn't have her show up like with her bags.
With her bag or anything. It's like, I'm going to meet this guy no matter what. I don't care what happens to me. We'll buy clothes when we get there.
She probably came from the police station. I got to get him before he gets on that train to Seattle.
Yeah.
I don't know. I buy it. And I buy also that he didn't want that wasn't his idea of how this should end. By the way, United Artists liked this movie enough that Kubrick had raised $75,000. Hard to raise the money. He'd raised money for his first film, Fear and Desire, which did not make money, so he had trouble raising the money for this one, but he got enough to make it. Then United Artists gave him $100 grand, and it was enough because they liked it enough to say, okay, we'll give you this and we'll release it, and we'll give you $100 grand to make your next movie. And that's where he made The Killing, which is a more complete film than what we just saw. But this one is every bit, to me, as riveting as The Killing is, and I love The Killing.
Yeah, and what you said earlier about it being gritty, from start to finish, it's so unapologetically gritty that I just loved it, and it just really captured the essence of New York during that time. And when you see Times Square and all the lights, and sometimes you see the people passing by, and you know they're not background actors because they're like, what's that? Is that a camera there? And one of my favorite scenes was the fight scene in the warehouse.
Yeah, with Frank Silvera and Jamie Smith together, and that is as good a fight scene as it gets. Nothing seemed choreographed.
No.
I find that in fight scenes that are too choreographed, you lose the emotional heft of it because you don't feel like there's any danger as soon as it feels staged. And also chase scenes, where I lose my place a lot in chase scenes in movies. I'm like, wait, so that guy was just behind him and now he's this far behind him. Here, this chase, totally credible. I felt every single moment of that.
I even questioned when one of the goons trips and falls on top of the roof, and he says, oh, my foot. I was wondering, that probably really happened.
I probably did, and it came right after Frank Silvera had fallen as he leapt over something, and clearly he fell. They're like, keep going, people fall down. So it was an effective way to get that goon out of it so that this could come down to our hero and our villain.
And the female lead, we have to give her a lot of credit. Man, she was just really great.
Irene Kane, she is really good.
Also, the ballet dancer scene
totally
comes out of left field.
Yeah, totally.
And it still works.
It still works, and the whole time it's just while she's telling the story. I didn't think there was a false moment in the movie. If there was anything at all that I didn't buy in the movie, is that in an effort to get Jamie Smith, our hero Davy, out of the way to set up the accidental murder of his manager, that those two like Shriners stole his scarf.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, but that scene with them distracting him, I loved. I loved.
Great.
Yeah.
But talk about that scene where his manager gets murdered in the alley. That was so real to me. Usually you're like, help, help, and they find a way to get out of it, and there is no way out.
Nope.
There is no way out. And the quiet panic that you feel, and you don't even see his face much. And it's just brilliantly done.
Yeah, totally. Rosie, great stuff. Thanks very much. Great pick. If this was boxing adjacent, our next one is a full-on boxing picture. And for my money, and there are a lot of great boxing movies, for my money, this is the best one. From 1956, this is Humphrey Bogart's last picture. The Harder They Fall is next on TCM. I'm back with Rosie Perez. Rosie, you've programmed tonight's movies, and you picked two great ones, and thank you for coming. It's a thrill for me.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I love TCM. I watch it every single night, honestly.
I believe it. You're here in just a great theater in Washington Heights, the United Palace Theater.
The detail, oh my God. It's just like you wonder, how the heck did they do this?
Yeah, totally. So you picked two boxing movies. The first one, Killer's Kiss, Stanley Kubrick's second movie, was, as we said, boxing adjacent. The other, The Harder They Fall. This is a full-on boxing movie. Boxing, clearly a big part of your life. In fact, Al Bernstein, the legendary boxing commentator and broadcaster, referred to you at the Boxing Hall of Fame, right?
Yes, International Boxing Hall of Fame.
At the International Boxing Hall of Fame as the First Lady of Boxing.
Yes.
And it stuck.
It stuck.
Yeah.
My cousin Sixto says that he thought of the name first, but Al Bernstein put it on the map.
Yeah, so it has, Sixto doesn't have the reach of Al Bernstein.
No, he does not. But I picked these two films not only because I'm a boxing fanatic, but also I love film noir. And these two films really join those two genres together just so perfectly, especially The Harder They Fall.
Yeah. Boxing is the sports genre that lends itself most to great films.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
I think it is because it really shows the human spirit about following your dreams and then sometimes having your dreams just crash and burn, you know, but everybody's rooting for that Rocky moment. And it would have been easy for me to pick Rocky because that's one of my favorite boxing films as well.
Who doesn't love
but
Rocky?
The reason why I love Harder They Fall is because it talks about the business of boxing. And that you don't see a lot in boxing films. You saw it a lot more in the 40s and the 50s, but not so much present day. The business of boxing is as brutal and really, really bloody as what happens inside the ring.
Yeah, and particularly in an era when fighters didn't get paid. And I'm sure there's still a whole swath of young fighters who haven't made it who still aren't getting paid. Here we get Humphrey Bogart. This is his final role. He looks worn down, which works really well for his character. He's a publicist. And Rod Steiger, who's a mob boss, brings him in to help sell the world on this Argentinian fighter, played by Mike Lane, and to sell him as this rising star and the next champion because he's so big, one punch from him could knock any man out. Except he's a terrible fighter.
He's a horrible fighter.
Powder puff punch and a glass jaw. That's a great combination.
And that in the fight game is called padding your fighter. You know, you give them easy fights to either build them up.
To be able to say, look, he's 9-0 with 8 knockouts.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, yeah.
And also sometimes they do it legitimately so that the fighter gets used to being in the ring and then the competition gets more and more difficult. But a lot of the time, especially early on, in the earlier years of the fight game, they would do it just to fix fights. And this movie was loosely based on a real fighter, Primo Carnera.
He's had 2 movies loosely based on him.
That's
this one
right.
and Requiem for a Heavyweight with Anthony Quinn.
Yes,
made, 6 years
another
later.
excellent boxing film. And Primo actually sued the studio and lost.
Yeah. This is based on a 1947 novel by Bud Schulberg called The Harder They Fall. The movie comes out 9 years later. And there are a couple things in here that, again, it's not the Primo Carnera story, but it is loosely based on his story. And Primo sued, but couldn't win.
Yeah, and Humphrey Bogart's character is also loosely based on Harold Conrad, who was an actual boxing publicist. And he was very, very respected. And Thomas Hauser was telling me that he was a bit of a hustler. That's why he fit so well. And he was also really famous because he was the person that brought, at the time, known as Cassius Clay, to the Beatles. And that famous photo that they had together down in Miami. And it was supposed to be Sonny Liston taking that photo up, but Sonny Liston had seen the Beatles the day before on the Ed Sullivan Show and said, who the hell are these guys? My son could play drums better than that guy with the nose.
I didn't know any of that story. That's
Thomas
great.
Hauser told me that story. He wrote it in his book about Ali, and I was cracking up on the phone with him. And yeah, but so this film just packs, no pun intended, so much in it, so much history about the fight game. So I urge your viewers to really look into the history of it all because it's fascinating.
Yeah, and read about Primo Carnera and his story, because his story is chilling and tragic, but you can also see why the movies thought, oh, this will make a great story. All right, this is a great film. We're going to watch it. We'll talk more afterwards, as we always do. Rosie Perez, you're the best. Thank you very much. Here it is from 1956, directed by Mark Robeson, based on Bud Schulberg's novel. Here are Humphrey Bogart and Rod Steiger atop the cast of The Harder They Fall. I mean, it's a perfect ending, too, right? But you know, it still pains me to see him give away $26,000. and one of the great things about Bogey, though, why he's so good, is that he knows he has to do it. But there's that moment when he's like, I worked so hard and I risked so much and I lost so much of myself, my soul, for this $26,000. But obviously, I'm going to have to give it to Toro.
Yes.
And he does. And then
And he does.
And he's a hero then.
And he redeems himself.
And he doesn't say, it's my cup, but I'm giving it to you. He's like, yeah, here's your money.
Yeah. And it was a perfect film also to show a boxer's life. You know, how there's so many other people involved in the decision-making of your career, and you don't have a lot of control. And that's actually a lot of, still to this day, I mean, boxers have so much more control nowadays than it was in the past, but still, if you think about other athletes like, you know, NFL players or baseball players or NBA players, the free agency, I mean, it's just, I wish that was in boxing, you know, but it's not. And there's the scene with the punch-drunk guy who actually was legitimately punch-drunk.
That's a fighter named Joe Krebs.
He's just being himself, and it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And he says such a poignant line. He says, boxers have a short life, but managers go on forever.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, and also there's a lot of great cameos of real, actual fighters.
First of all, playing Buddy Brannon, the champ, that's Max Baer.
Max Baer.
Who had the reputation, I don't know if it's true, that he killed 2 people in the ring. But part of that was, obviously, it's a dangerous sport and people die. But Max Baer was a ferocious fighter. He's a good actor, too. Even the fighter who played Gus Dundee, that was Pat Comiskey. You know, when he went down, when he got hit, he has that look. I mean, that's acting. That's a really great performance.
Jersey Joe.
And, of course, Jersey Joe Walcott as George, yeah.
And Jersey Joe had a really good career as well. He won a championship fight just once, but his acting skills were really great.
They fully committed to these parts, and the boxing scenes in it, I think, are pretty strong.
And also, really hard thing about this film, it's about money. They call it prize fighting for a reason. I mean, to step in the ring and have your life be in jeopardy, you better give me as much money as possible.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And it was the same thing. It's, you know, with the Willis character played by Bogart. It's like, if I'm going to discredit myself, you know, compromise myself, you better pay me for it. It's just really hard pill to swallow.
And speaking of the money, to that point, one of my favorite, most powerful scenes in the movie, and the way they get through all of it is effective, too, from a storytelling point of view. When Rod Steiger tells the accountant to explain why Toro's getting $49. And there's a moment when Bogart says, all right, I got it. You don't need to, I got it. You guys are screwing him. And then when Steiger goes, no, you started this. We're going to finish it.
Right.
And then we keep, it's a really good scene. It's a great scene, painful scene. So we talked about this a little before the movie, about why boxing films lend themselves to such great storytelling. I mean, you know, if you made a list of the top 50 sports movies of all time, there'd be more boxing movies on there than any other. I think, no, I don't even think it's close.
Because everyone gets knocked down by life, right? No matter how much money you have or how little money you have, everyone at a certain point in your life, or maybe multiple times in your life, you're going to get knocked down, right? Not everybody gets back up. Right? So when you see someone get back up, it just does something to your heart. You know, and that's why people always go just to see boxing movies.
So what's your favorite boxing movie?
My favorite boxing movie, honestly?
Yeah.
Body and Soul. John Garfield, one of my favorite actors of all time. It's just amazing, and I don't think any other actor could have played it, especially because John Garfield fought up in the Bronx. He fought, and so he had that natural grit to him, and he had that heart that most people don't talk about that boxers have. Boxers, I know them personally, they're very sensitive people. Very, very sensitive people, and you'll find that surprising. But when you go to a title fight, whether they win or lose, they cry. Have you ever seen that? They cry. Sometimes they cry in the ring, sometimes they don't, but I followed boxers into their dressing room after the fight. Whether they win or lose, the tears come. Yeah. Rosie Perez, the first lady of boxing, is dubbed by Al Bernstein. Thank you so much. This was a pleasure. And, my pleasure.
Yeah, and you're our resident boxing expert as well. I hope you'll come back. Oh, please, please. Thank you. Rosie's work is done for the night, but the movies continue on TCM, as always, uncut and commercial-free. Coming up next, Eddie Muller has Noir Alley. Now, I'm taping this at a time where I don't know what Eddie's movie is going to be. So I'll just tell you that if the programming people have done their job, this will be a boxing movie. And if it's not a boxing movie, it's Rosie's fault. Stay with us.